Imagine this. You're living what feels like the perfect life. You found the love of your life, a man who's kind, charming, and seemingly ordinary in the best way possible. You've built a life together, shared dreams, and maybe even started a family. But one day, something shifts. A strange phone call. A mysterious package. A name you've never heard before. Suddenly, the man you thought you knew better than anyone reveals a side of himself you never could have imagined. What if the person you've been sharing your life with has been hiding a secret so enormous, so life-altering, that it could change everything you've ever believed about love, trust, and reality itself? This is the story of Emily Carter, a woman who thought she married a regular man only to discover he's hiding a billion-dollar secret. Now I know what you're thinking. Another dramatic story? How is this any different? But trust me, this isn't just another tale of secrets and lies. This is a story that will make you question how well you truly know the people closest to you. It's a story about love, betrayal, and the lengths someone will go to protect a secret that could destroy everything. And here's the thing, by the end of this video, you're going to get answers. Real, jaw-dropping answers to the questions that are already forming in your mind. Who is this man? What is he hiding? And how could Emily have missed the signs? Stick with me because this is one story you won't want to miss. Let's start with Emily. She's someone you might relate to, a hard-working, down-to-earth woman who values honesty and loyalty above all else. She's not the type to fall for flashy gestures or empty promises. When she met Daniel, he was everything she'd ever wanted in a partner. Kind, attentive, and refreshingly normal. He wasn't the kind of guy who boasted about his accomplishments or flaunted his wealth. In fact, he was almost too humble. He worked a regular job, drove a modest car, and lived in a cozy apartment. To Emily, he was the perfect balance of stability and adventure. But as we'll soon discover, nothing about Daniel was as it seemed. From the outside, their life together was picture perfect. They got married in a small, intimate ceremony surrounded by friends and family. They bought a house in a quiet suburban neighborhood, adopted a golden retriever named Max, and settled into a routine that felt like something out of a Hallmark movie. But beneath the surface, there were cracks, tiny, almost imperceptible signs that something was off. A phone call Daniel would take in another room. A business trip that seemed to come out of nowhere. A name he'd casually drop in conversation, only to quickly change the subject. At the time, Emily brushed it off. After all, everyone has their quirks, right? But looking back, she realizes those were the first clues to a truth so shocking, it would turn her world upside down. The real turning point came on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday afternoon. Emily was home alone, sorting through the mail, when she came across a letter addressed to Daniel. It wasn't the first time she'd seen his name on an envelope, but something about this one felt different. The return address was from a law firm she'd never heard of, and the words confidential and urgent were stamped across the front. Her heart raced as she turned the envelope over in her hands. Should she open it? It felt like a violation of trust, but something deep inside her told her she needed to know what was inside. And that's when she found it, a document that would change everything. I won't spoil the details just yet, but let's just say what Emily discovered was beyond anything she could have imagined. It wasn't just a secret, it was a revelation that would force her to question everything she thought she knew about the man she married. Who is Daniel, really? And why had he gone to such lengths to keep this part of his life hidden? As Emily dug deeper, she uncovered a web of lies, deceit, and a fortune so vast, it was almost incomprehensible. But with every answer she found, new questions emerged. What did this mean for their marriage? For their future? And most importantly, could she ever trust him again? This story isn't just about money or secrets, it's about the human condition. It's about the masks we wear, the truths we hide, and the lengths we'll go to protect the ones we love. It's about the fine line between love and betrayal, and how easily that line can be crossed. And it's about the resilience of the human spirit, and how even in the face of unimaginable betrayal, we can find the strength to rebuild and move forward. So, if you're ready to dive into a story that will keep you on the edge of your seat, stick around. Because by the end of this video, you're going to get the answers you've been waiting for. You're going to find out what Emily discovered, how she handled it, and what happened to Daniel and their marriage. But more than that, you're going to walk away with a story that will make you think twice about the people in your life and the secrets they might be hiding. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt like someone in your life was hiding something from you? Maybe it was a partner, a friend, or even a family member. That gut feeling that something just isn't right? That's exactly how Emily felt. And just like her, you deserve to know the truth. So if you're ready to uncover the secrets, solve the mystery, and find out what really happened, keep watching. Because this is one story you won't want to miss. But here's the thing, this is just the beginning. What Emily discovered was only the tip of the iceberg. As she dug deeper, she realized that Daniel's secret was far bigger, far more dangerous than she ever could have imagined. And the more she uncovered, the more she realized that her life and the lives of everyone she loved were in danger. So, what happened next? How did Emily handle the truth? And what did Daniel do when his secret was finally revealed? Well, you'll have to keep watching to find out. Because trust me, the best and most shocking part of the story is yet to come. As Emily sat there clutching the letter in her trembling hands, her mind raced with 1,000 questions. The document inside was a legal notice, something about a trust fund and assets worth hundreds of millions of dollars. At first, she thought it must be a mistake. Daniel? Her Daniel? The man who clipped coupons and drove a 10-year-old sedan? It didn't make sense. But as she read further, the pieces began to fall into place. The name on the document wasn't just Daniel Carter, it was Daniel Carter Winthrop. Winthrop! The name rang a bell, but she couldn't quite place it. She grabbed her laptop and typed the name into the search bar. What she found left her breathless. The Winthrops were one of the oldest, wealthiest families in the country, with a fortune stretching back generations. Their name was synonymous with power, influence, and secrecy. And somehow her husband was connected to them. But why had he never told her? Why had he hidden this part of himself? Emily's mind flashed back to their early days together. Daniel had always been private about his past, deflecting questions about his family with vague answers or jokes. "Oh, my parents are just regular people," he'd say with a shrug. Nothing interesting to talk about. At the time, she'd thought it was endearing, a sign of his humility. Now it felt like a red flag she'd been too blind to see. She thought about the times he'd disappeared for days on so-called business trips. The late-night phone calls he'd take in hushed tones, the way he'd always insisted on handling their finances himself. It all made sense now, or at least it was starting to. Emily's heart pounded as she picked up her phone and dialed Daniel's number. It went straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same result. A cold knot of dread formed in her stomach. Where was he? And what else was he hiding? She decided to dig deeper. Over the next few days, she combed through their shared files, his email accounts, even his social media profiles. What she found was a trail of breadcrumbs leading to a life she never knew existed. There were photos of Daniel at exclusive events, rubbing shoulders with celebrities and politicians. There were bank statements from accounts she'd never heard of, with balances that made her head spin. And then there were the emails, hundreds of them, dating back years, between Daniel and a man named Victor Winthrop. From what she could gather, Victor was Daniel's uncle, and the emails were filled with cryptic references to the family business, the trust, and keeping up appearances. But the most shocking discovery came when Emily found a folder labeled Project Phoenix. Inside were blueprints, financial reports, and contracts for a massive real estate development in New York City. The project was worth billions, and Daniel's name was all over it. He wasn't just connected to the Winthrops, he was one of them. And he'd been lying to her from the very beginning. Emily felt a mix of emotions, anger, betrayal, but also a strange sense of relief. At least now she knew the truth. Or so she thought. As Emily delved deeper into Daniel's double life, she began to uncover layers of deception she never could have imagined. It wasn't just about the money or the family name. There were darker secrets lurking beneath the surface. She found evidence of offshore accounts, shell companies, and transactions that didn't add up. There were emails hinting at illegal activities, bribery, fraud, even blackmail. And then there were the photos. Dozens of them, hidden in a locked folder on Daniel's computer. They showed Daniel with people Emily didn't recognize, in places she'd never been. Some of the photos were innocent enough: Daniel at a charity gala, Daniel shaking hands with a senator. But others were more troubling. There was one of Daniel standing outside a nondescript building in what looked like Eastern Europe, another of him meeting with a man who bore a striking resemblance to a known crime boss. Who were these people? And what was Daniel involved in? Emily's mind was spinning. She didn't know who to trust or where to turn. She thought about confronting Daniel, but something held her back. What if he denied everything? What if he tried to gaslight her, make her think she was crazy? She couldn't risk it. Not yet. Instead, she decided to do something she never thought she'd do. She reached out to Victor Winthrop. The email was short and to the point. "I know who you are, and I know about Daniel. We need to talk." She didn't expect a response, but within hours, her phone rang. It was Victor. His voice was calm, almost too calm, as he agreed to meet her in person. "But be careful," he warned. "There are things you don't understand. Things you're not ready to hear." The meeting took place at a secluded estate outside the city. Emily felt a mix of fear and determination as she drove through the wrought iron gates and up the long, tree-lined driveway. The house was massive, a sprawling mansion that looked like something out of a movie. Victor greeted her at the door, his expression unreadable. He led her to a study lined with bookshelves and oil paintings, where they sat across from each other in silence for what felt like an eternity. Finally, Victor spoke. "You're in over your head, Emily," he said. "Daniel isn't who you think he is, and neither am I." What followed was a conversation that left Emily more confused than ever. Victor told her about the Winthrop family's history, their rise to power, and the sacrifices they'd made to maintain their wealth and influence. He spoke of a shadowy network of alliances and enemies, of deals made in back rooms and secrets buried so deep they'd never see the light of day. And then he dropped the bombshell. Daniel wasn't just hiding his wealth, he was hiding his true identity. The man Emily had married wasn't Daniel Carter at all. His real name was Daniel Winthrop, and he'd been living under an alias for years. But why? And what did that mean for Emily? Victor refused to say more, only warning her to be careful. "There are people who would do anything to protect the family's secrets," he said, "including Daniel." Emily left the estate with more questions than answers. Who was the real Daniel? What was he capable of? And how far would he go to keep his secrets hidden? As she drove home, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every car that passed, every shadow in the rearview mirror felt like a threat. She didn't know who to trust: Daniel, Victor, or even herself. But one thing was clear: she was in way over her head. And then, just when she thought things couldn't get any more complicated, she received a text from an unknown number. It was a single sentence. "You're not the only one looking for answers." Emily's heart skipped a beat. Who was this person? What did they know? And were they friend or foe? She didn't have time to think about it. As she pulled into her driveway, she saw something that made her blood run cold. The front door was slightly ajar, and the lights were on. She was sure she'd locked up before leaving. Slowly, cautiously, she stepped inside. The house was eerily quiet, but she could feel a presence, something or someone waiting for her. She called out Daniel's name, but there was no response. And then she saw a single red rose lying on the kitchen table with a note attached. The message was short, but it sent a chill down her spine. "You're getting too close. Be careful what you wish for." Emily's mind raced. Who had been in her house? Was it Daniel? Victor? Someone else entirely? And what did they mean by too close? She felt a surge of adrenaline, a mix of fear and determination. She wasn't going to back down. Not now. Not when she was so close to the truth. But as she stood there, clutching the note in her hand, she realized something terrifying. She wasn't just uncovering Daniel's secret. She was uncovering a web of lies and deceit that went far beyond him. And the deeper she dug, the more dangerous it became. The story was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. Emily had stumbled into a world she didn't understand. A world of power, greed, and betrayal. And as she would soon discover, the stakes were higher than she ever could have imagined. But for now, all she could do was wait and wonder what would happen next. Because one thing was certain, nothing in her life would ever be the same again. And the biggest question of all remained unanswered. Who could she trust? The answer, as she would soon find out, was more complicated and more dangerous than she ever could have imagined. Emily stood frozen in her kitchen, the note still clutched in her hand, her mind racing with possibilities. The rose, the open door, the cryptic warning, it all felt like something out of a thriller movie. But this was her life, and the danger was very real. She knew she couldn't stay in the house. Whoever had been here could come back, and she wasn't about to wait around to find out who they were or what they wanted. Grabbing her phone and a few essentials, she hurried out the door and into her car, her heart pounding as she drove aimlessly, trying to figure out her next move. She needed answers, but more than that, she needed to stay alive. As she drove, her phone buzzed again. It was another text from the unknown number. Meet me at the old pier. Midnight. Come alone. Emily's stomach churned. Was this a trap? Or was it the break she'd been waiting for? She didn't know, but she also knew she didn't have much of a choice. Whoever this person was, they clearly knew something about Daniel and about her. She decided to take the risk. But first, she needed to prepare. She stopped at a nearby store and bought a small pocket knife just in case. It wasn't much, but it made her feel a little safer. As the hours ticked by, she found herself replaying every moment of her life with Daniel, searching for clues she might have missed. How had she been so blind? And how deep did this rabbit hole really go? The pier was deserted when she arrived, the moon casting an eerie glow over the water. Emily parked her car a few blocks away and walked the rest of the distance, her senses on high alert. Every sound, the creak of the wooden planks, the lapping of the waves made her jump. She felt like she was being watched, but every time she turned around, there was no one there. Finally, she reached the end of the pier and waited, her breath visible in the cold night air. Minutes felt like hours as she stood there, her nerves fraying with every passing second. And then, just as she was about to give up and leave, a figure emerged from the shadows. It was a woman, tall and elegant, with sharp features and an air of authority. She looked familiar, but Emily couldn't quite place her. "You're braver than I thought," the woman said, her voice calm but laced with an edge. "I wasn't sure you'd come." Emily's heart raced. "Who are you?" she demanded. "And what do you know about Daniel?" The woman smiled faintly. "My name is Cassandra Winthrop. I'm Daniel's sister." Emily's eyes widened. Daniel had never mentioned a sister. In fact, he'd always said he was an only child. Cassandra seemed to read her thoughts. "He wouldn't have told you about me," she said. "He doesn't even know I'm alive." The revelation hit Emily like a punch to the gut. Daniel had a sister, and he didn't know she was alive? What kind of twisted family was this? Cassandra went on to explain that she'd been presumed dead for years, the victim of a tragic accident that had been staged to protect her from the family's enemies. "The Winthrops have a lot of them," she said bitterly. "And Daniel. Well, he's always been the golden child, the one they trusted with everything. But even he doesn't know the full truth." Emily's head was spinning. "What truth?" she asked. Cassandra hesitated, then said, "The truth about Project Phoenix. It's not just a real estate development. It's a cover for something much bigger and much darker." Before Cassandra could elaborate, a noise echoed from the shadows. Both women turned, their eyes scanning the darkness. "We're not alone," Cassandra whispered. "We need to go. Now." She grabbed Emily's arm and pulled her toward a waiting car. As they sped away, Emily's mind raced with questions. What was Project Phoenix really about? And why had Cassandra chosen now to reveal herself? But there was no time for answers. Cassandra drove with a sense of urgency, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror every few seconds. "They're following us," she said grimly. Emily turned to look out the back window and saw headlights in the distance, closing in fast. The car chase that followed was like something out of an action movie. Cassandra weaved through narrow streets and alleyways, trying to lose their pursuers. Emily clung to the door handle, her heart in her throat. Who were these people? And what did they want? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Cassandra managed to shake them off. She pulled into an underground parking garage and killed the engine, both women sitting in silence as they caught their breath. "We can't stay here long," Cassandra said. "They'll find us eventually. But there's something you need to see." She handed Emily a flash drive. "Everything you need to know is on here. But be careful who you trust. Not everyone is who they seem." Emily took the flash drive, her hands trembling. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff, about to plunge into the unknown. But she also knew there was no turning back. She had to see this through, no matter the cost. Cassandra gave her one last piece of advice before they parted ways. "Find Victor. He's the only one who can help you now." Emily nodded, though she wasn't sure she could trust Victor any more than she could trust Daniel. But she was out of options. As she watched Cassandra disappear into the night, she felt a strange mix of fear and determination. She was in way over her head, but she wasn't going to give up. Not now. Not when she was so close to the truth. Back at her car, Emily plugged the flash drive into her laptop. What she found was a treasure trove of information, emails, documents, photos, and videos that painted a picture of a conspiracy far bigger than she'd ever imagined. Project Phoenix wasn't just about money or power. It was about control over governments, corporations, even people's lives. And at the center of it all was the Winthrop family. But there was something else, something even more shocking. Buried in the files was a video of Daniel speaking to a group of powerful men in a dimly lit room. His voice was cold, calculating, nothing like the man she thought she knew. "The world is ours for the taking," he said, "and anyone who gets in our way will be dealt with." Emily felt sick to her stomach. Was this the real Daniel? Had everything, their marriage, their life together, been a lie? She didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was right in front of her. And then, just as she was about to close the laptop, she saw something that made her blood run cold. A file labeled Emily. She opened it, her hands shaking, and found photos of herself, some taken recently, others from years ago. There were notes about her habits, her routines, even her fears. It was as if someone had been watching her, studying her, for years. But who? And why? The pieces were starting to come together, but the picture they formed was more terrifying than she could have imagined. She wasn't just uncovering Daniel's secrets, she was uncovering a web of lies and deceit that went far beyond him. And the deeper she dug, the more dangerous it became. But one thing was clear, she couldn't do this alone. She needed help. And there was only one person left to turn to, Victor Winthrop. As she picked up her phone to call him, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was walking into a trap. But what choice did she have? The stakes were too high to back down now. And as she would soon discover, the biggest twist of all was still to come. Emily's hands trembled as she dialed Victor Winthrop's number, her mind racing with the weight of everything she'd just uncovered. The flash drive had revealed a world of secrets so vast and sinister that it felt like stepping into a nightmare. When Victor answered, his voice was calm, almost too calm, as if he'd been expecting her call. "Emily," he said, "I've been waiting for you to reach out. We need to talk face to face." She agreed, though every fiber of her being screamed that this was a bad idea. But what choice did she have? She was in too deep to turn back now. They met at a secluded cabin deep in the woods, far from prying eyes. Victor was already there when she arrived, sitting by a crackling fire with a glass of whiskey in hand. He looked older than she remembered, his face lined with the weight of years of secrets. "Sit down," he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. "You've come a long way, Emily. But there's still so much you don't know." She sat, her heart pounding, and listened as Victor began to unravel the final threads of the Winthrop family's dark tapestry. He spoke of a legacy built on lies, of generations of power and corruption, and of the lengths they'd gone to protect their empire. "Project Phoenix," he said, "isn't just about money or control. It's about survival. Our survival." As Victor spoke, Emily began to understand the true scope of what she'd stumbled into. The Winthrops weren't just a wealthy family. They were a dynasty, with tendrils reaching into every corner of the world. Governments, corporations, even entire economies were under their influence. And at the center of it all was Daniel. "He's not just my nephew," Victor said. "He's the heir to everything. The one we've been grooming to take over. But he's also a liability. He's too emotional, too unpredictable. And now, thanks to you, he's a loose end." Emily's blood ran cold. "What are you saying?" she asked. Victor leaned forward, his eyes piercing. "I'm saying that Daniel's time is up. And so is yours, unless you do exactly as I say." Before Emily could respond, the door burst open and Daniel stormed in, his face a mask of fury. "Victor!" he shouted. "What the hell are you doing?" The two men faced off, their voices rising as they argued over Emily's fate. It was clear that Daniel had been kept in the dark about Victor's plans, and he wasn't happy about it. "She's my wife," Daniel yelled. "You can't just..." Victor cut him off with a sharp gesture. "She's a threat, Daniel, and threats need to be neutralized." Emily sat frozen, her mind racing. She had to get out of